Well, hello people, and welcome back to another episode of Kokomo State. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Between this episode and the last one, we had a live stream working on some prop details behind commercial on the recently formed waterfront of Saratoga, whilst also reforming the bends of the river to host many new different suburban parks and small Sunday markets, alongside adding a gas station into the industrial area, which was a very requested feature from a couple of episodes ago. If you want to catch these builds in their long-form glory where you can get a much greater sense of my ideas and planning, check out the live tab over on the channel and you'll find many hours of long-form, unedited building if that's your style. However, in today's episode, the city is desperate for garbage, so we'll be building our own custom recycling centre, expanding the industrial side of the grid on the opposite side of the highway. But otherwise, let's make a garbage build, shall we? So the city yearns for garbage collection across the city. It's all piled up in the downtown. Granted, we have busy traffic down the highway, and this really ebbs and flows with people moving in. If we have a look at all these people, you notice it says, well, most of them are going home, besides the ones that are shopping. So these are all just new people coming into the array of apartments we placed last episode. So this will clear out once they get here. I've also noticed on occasion, it's not too bad at the minute, but the taxi stands are also getting quite busy. And having looked at the building we placed a few episodes ago, all of the vehicles are out and moving around as well. So we'll place another taxi depot today. But garbage is the order of the day. So we'll start with recycling, unlocking the recycling centre unique. And I imagine we'll eventually place the industrial waste processing a little later in the city, probably in a much significant industrial area, more of a port building this, I think. So we'll look at some Paradox mods, but there's not an enormous amount of custom garbage assets, unfortunately. There is one pack, but a lot of the comments on it are saying that it's outdated, so I'm not keen to introduce it to the city if it's going to be causing us issues in the long term. So let's bring some roads into the middle of the major arterial grid frames here, so we can start basing things around. So we'll place an actual recycling centre. Now we've also got the waste collection centre from Grooney, who is one of the immensely talented CS2 asset creators. Look at this for a custom asset, isn't that amazing? So this is going to give us small local recycling. And how many vehicles do we get out of this? Only 4. It does also have a truck depot upgrade on it as well, which I think for today is going to be a really handy sub-building for us. But of course I'm not just going to place this right here on the arterial, but it is a really nice asset. But we'll start with the recycling centre, which is 880,000, which is, I think, the definition of a real chungus. Now, I already know where I want this to go here, but I certainly want that arrangement there on the 90-degree angle into the corner of the interchange. We will also go ahead and grab our highways as well, and we'll add a new slip lane. That just joins there on the medium. We also have some turn corrections to make here as well, and people can turn left out of here. That is not allowed. And likewise, you also can't turn right off of this road either, and likewise with this side as well, now that that's back in. And we'll mirror that on this side as well. And then we're also banning that left turn off this intersection here as well. So just expanding what's already on the map here, essentially just mirroring really. And just for aesthetic purposes, I'm probably going to upgrade that central one into 4-lane highway here too. There we go, just because we have that segment there, alright. It does actually carry on as highway road here, doesn't it? But I'm not going to do that this side, I don't think, because this will be a major entrance point onto the eventual downtown highway system, which that road will eventually evolve into. And let's bring a road in so everyone here is happy. Just touch him down until he gets that connection. Perfect. Now this building also has a number of upgrades. One is a depot. Currently we're getting only... Still collecting them there, isn't it? It's going to take all of them, I think, is it? Yeah, 12 of 12, so we'll immediately expand the truck capacity with an extra 10 garbage trucks. The hazardous waste collection point will allow garbage to be processed at a higher speed. That's not something we're struggling with at all yet. And then the storage expansion as well. It comes with 1.5 kilotons. This will give it an extra 250 tons. We're going to have that just across the street there as well. Also a really handy sub-building for areas like this. There we go, just corrected that road there. That was quite wonky. So I'm certainly taking inspiration from this build from Tampa, where there's a little peninsula that has a bunch of different generic industries on it, including a recycling centre itself, a really grassy car scrapyard, a couple of warehouse-looking numbers, a fire and police training centre, alongside a police firing range, and what looks to be, I guess, a police car test concrete surface, probably. There's a lot of cones laid out here in the street view, so I think they're certainly doing some driving manoeuvre work in this little empty concrete lot. I'm also going to place in Greenies recycling centre here as well, but I want this to be sat back level with the edge of this building. We can start to form these little industrial developments, and we've also got some industrial demand as well, so we'll do some of the same zoning tips we did in the starter industry as well. Let's turn off side building snapping here. There we go. This can come all the way around the back and then just form a little industrial back alley street to run around there, right? And we'll probably feed this back with a couple of little cul-de-sac roads, a little bit of tactical cul-de-sac by the arterial here. I always find, especially in the Margrid projects, when these big gridded arterials, where the kind of, I guess, the name of the project comes from almost, I find the sight lines around them to be very important. So I'll enjoy some of that here. We'll also fill this area out with a little bit of industrial zoning as well. Let's definitely get some much larger single plots in here. I'm going to try and keep the arterials free of zoning for the most part, especially around these major junctions, which can also afford some asymmetry road upgrades. So we could really go heavy Florida here with the 6 and 8 lane roads. The asymmetry is a bit immense. I think I'll get into these downtown way. I think for this side of the highway, especially where we will be remaining low density in this part of the map, we'll stick with the 5 lane asymmetry. Of course, facing into the junction on every side. So it'll be interesting to see in CS2 just how long the Margrid format holds with traffic. Because granted, some bad planning. See, like this traffic does clear, it just gets busy on occasion. There you go. See the taxi stand here? Everyone's waiting for a taxi here. And they're all poor. Walk. Walk or get a bus. Why are you paying for a taxi if you're poor? Anyway, that's fine. I'll leave them to it. But look at this though, right? Loads of people enjoying the high street here. We did actually have some comments last episode saying that we haven't put enough car parking in the downtown area. Which there is a few car parks. There's some on buildings on the road. But I guess will they only use this car park if they're coming to this building? I'm actually not sure about that from the parking simulation point of view. Right, there's a car park here. I mean, I guess we can see, right? The Price family, what are you doing? Where is she? She's here. Okay. Yeah, so she's going home. So she's just parked at that parking lot there and has then come, which is strange, isn't it, considering... Well, I guess, yeah, because this building's parking lot is full, she's had to park over here. Which is quite interesting, actually, isn't it? Okay. Well, just to quickly break from the industrial area, we'll add some parking to the downtown here. There's definitely a few little spaces that we can just have these smaller little numbers in. Also just upgraded a few of the roads around town as well to be these one-way parking roads. And just so we get some extra proper street parking. And just roads that can afford to be one-way. Just things outside buildings that loop around into these areas and stuff. We also had a comment saying that everyone's walking because there is no parking as well. The only feedback we get from the parking simulation is the facility available, which is still in the dark green for them. So we'll see. Anyway, all of the parking we just placed is immediately filled, so maybe we need to revisit the parking integration into the city going forward. We also saw just over there as well that we need more bus vehicles too. So let's add in another bus depot. The large one. Yeah, I suppose I'll use this here. Let's drop this in. Is that going to sit and fit? It is as well. Isn't that fantastic? There's another milestone. More signature buildings. Fantastic. This will give us an initial 25 capacity, so that'll probably do. We don't need to add the bus depot upgrade yet. But we will want to save room for it, so I'm going to add that one in there. And then just say that tile must be saved, so we have room for this here, right? But yeah, there's still plenty parked there. We'll set up some new bus routes here as well once we've got a fuller grid. We've also got some industrial growing in here now as well. So I'm going to make a lot of the early levels historical. So I can begin to manipulate their detailing. Looks like we're going to have quite high volume traffic coming out of this road in particular too. So I'm just going to give them an extra turning lane to help them filter back out. With a lot of them actually taking this route into town, which I'm happy with because it stops them going down that really narrow main road. Oh, and we've also had our first crash on the new slip ramps as well. Rest in peace. That reminds me actually, vehicle maintenance should also feature here as well. And we're also seeing ambulance warnings too. All 3 vehicles are out here. So maybe we're also due another med clinic or hospital of some description. I'm going to place a regular vanilla med clinic right on the corner of the arterial here. This is a really perfect corner asset, isn't it? Looks very nice here. I might even actually, just because that's sat on the arterial road, allow it to sit on a cul-de-sac instead. Draw this down and remove the traffic light as well. Okay. And then we've got some further things to landscape out here as well. Sweet, something like that. Again, just to arrange it on the corner. Just a nice little service building here. Little tree lining on the edge of it, nice and simple. But that gives us a cool view here. Now there is also going to be eventual suburbia here as well. And we're in pretty big needs for education too, with such a massive population expansion last episode. The education system has certainly felt the strain of that. So I think I'd like to use the southwest school here, because I know it's absolutely massive. Yeah, this one here, now this will fill a Margrid frame on its own, won't it? See, this will be really interesting to see where the scale of CS2 really kind of begins to accentuate the Margrid, you know? I think that's going to be quite a lot of fun. So we'll bring a road down to hold this. Let's go over here. This will eventually form part of more suburban grid. And we'll just maybe a tile too far forward there. Yeah, there we go. So we'll have that in there. How much capacity is that going to bring us for high school? Yeah, it throws us well into the green again. Very nice. And this will have multiple expansions we can add onto it as well when the time comes. And then we'll box in this side as well. Now, I'm not planning to grow this area out today. This will be a second episode likely as we begin to arrive at this next rail boundary and develop this waterfront and mini island too. But just because we have the demand today, also make sure the city doesn't go too long without its education system collapsing. This is where I really begin to appreciate the scale of CS2, you know? Like, that's just a high school, but looks like such an important building, doesn't it? Especially this approach on the highway into the city. Looks so realistic, that, doesn't it? Absolutely fantastic. Love to see that. And in terms of elementary, I might just put the UK one across the street. Give it its assets. Yeah, this does look like a super UK elementary school, but also kind of doubles as an office block. It doesn't particularly scream education, does it? It does just look a bit like generic random city building, doesn't it? So I think, again, just aligns perfectly with the grid. I'm going to be happy with it sat here. That brings us back up for both basic education levels. Colleges and universities will be substantially bigger areas, I think, than just placed on the suburban grid like this, as you would expect to come across them in city centres, etc. So we also had some crime issues in the city, which seem to have dissipated now. There's all 6 police cars currently out patrolling, which seems quite the deficit for nearly, well, more than 10,500 people now. So let's also bring in another police station as well. And then we can use this to form what we see in Tampa, where there's a police firing range, and also the little test circuit as well, where it looks like they're hosting car training. So in terms of the police station, I think again, inclined to go with Southwest. I know I am possibly somewhat abusing the Southwest pack, but my word, is it good. We'll give this a full wraparound so all of its entrances are satisfied, along with, of course, some tactical cul-de-sac action. And then here from the satellite imagery, it certainly seems as though there's definitely some kind of like training camp going on, if you like. I'm going to draw in some dirt roads here. Just draw out a general sort of polygonal shape here. And here I'm going to search for some ramps. And we've got a few of them here. That's more the skate ramp, isn't it? I can't really get away with that one, I don't think. It's going to have to be the dog park ramps, I guess. I'm going to put these on a fence mode, I think, just to thicken them out a little bit. So let's do like there. And then essentially have this run as a kind of mock assault course, almost marking out the very well-trodden police training path, of course, where they're training to climb through tubes, over steps, etc. Definitely some sort of endurance or fitness training going on here, right? We'll do that, and then I want to dry out pretty much all of the grass around it, right? So that dirt track really stands out, and then just a little bit of fencing around the edge of it here, just to bring everything home. And then we'll find a little booth here, just as you know, entrance on, perhaps where budding recruits can pick up a pass or, you know, sign in, register for said training. And there would definitely be more props we can add to this. I imagine some of the gym stuff as well will probably settle in here. We'll find out. But one of the placeable gyms has a few things here. You know, so we could create obstacles out of this. Likewise with these. And all sorts of fun and games you can begin to repurpose things in for. Even one of the signs here as well, you know. Outdoor gym for at least the police academy nearby. And that can just be a really fun, quite random accompaniment, isn't it, to a police station here. That just helps fill out some generic, what is essentially generic industrial space here, right? We're just adding in a few zones. Mainly recycling today, but also bus service. We also mentioned road maintenance, which I'd like to have a look at as well before we go any further. You know what, that will fit on that road quite nicely there outside the school. I'll just have to downgrade this road to an alleyway to be 1 tile wide. Which I might actually keep going all the way down here. Possibly as another connection again, but not one that needs a traffic light on it at all. Same with that one down there as well. But this is coming together here, I feel. We're getting this kind of generic service industry sprawl here now, aren't we? So let's have a little look at what we can possibly do here with a sort of test drive circuit. It almost looks like, if you played GTA San Andreas, you might remember the driving school from the San Francisco inspired area. Kind of looks a little bit like that, like a place where cadets might practice pit maneuvers and how to deploy the little spiked rails that are used to stop the world's criminals, etc. So with the road frame here, just to talk about this, we're currently at 448 meters, which I think was about the depth that made the grids, wasn't it? Yeah, 446 here, so pretty much the same. So this industrial area is almost going to mark the end of one of the main grids. And we'll use the road to really border that up. By the way, this little menu redesign down here, I'll just touch on some of the mods. Now I am planning to make a video in this series that solely focuses just on the mod setup. But this is the asset menu tweaks mod. I have the redesigned tabs, and that's what sorts them out in the menus. So they stop being these chunky tabs along the top, and they're just smaller, more discrete icons down at the bottom over here. So let's have our pit test circuit, I suppose is what I'm going to call it. Essentially just across the street. And I guess will isolate this, but I do want it to be snapped to 90 degrees. So I'm going to do that first. And then they're all perfectly snapped. We can add another point there. And then delete those two. This way we know we're 90 degrees from all the networks around us here. So with that in, I do have a small collection of, I guess, kind of scuffed concrete dirt decals in the mod set. Now, the reason I'm not going decal heavy in every build is because I don't want to just absolutely destroy the frame rate come the end of the series. So I'm trying to be somewhat sparing with them. I think for lack of a better phrase, a lot of these large cracks are going to help us, I think. So something to this sort of extent, and then diving into the industrial props, let's grab ourselves some regular street cones here. And then we can draw them out. Obviously it looks like some police cars have been doing donuts here. Unintended, I suppose. And then almost kind of, I guess, probably a line tool fill is a little easier here. And then just guiding where those decals are almost going to guide the detailing, really. And then perhaps here we can do like a little bit of a turn, maybe. Make it a little wider for them. And of course, cadets can feel free to arrange these cones for whatever training movers it is that they're practicing today. You can even start to divide the decal up as well. But I think just certainly really interesting configuration of props, at least. That's why I always advocate, if you're stuck for inspiration or you're not sure what goes in a particular area, Google Earth is just such a fantastic reference point for it. It really is. Prime example here of need something to sit near a recycling centre, and we can find a little police car test track just across the street from the police station, right? And the same thing with anything, really, just to hammer home that point. Doesn't have to be a recycling centre. You know, if you're stuck for what goes on the left side of one of your interchanges, go find one of these on Google Earth and see what sits next to them. For a lot of my inspiration, it's a lot of distribution centres in the Florida Margrid. But yeah, it's just such a, I think, can be a very rewarding, refreshing way to play the game when you're starting to consider more of a recreation project as opposed to just a regular city build of your own. Which, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy. You know, my regular city builds would be Ilium, isn't particularly inspired by anywhere in the world, although the topography is taken from New Zealand. It isn't a New Zealand inspired city, you know, but this is going to be Florida inspired. So hopefully that sorts of start to explain the difference of how I view these projects, I think. Let's bring in some dry grass mountain brush on a 55% strength here. And we'll just dry this out. A little bit of dirt as well. Can't imagine this is the most clean area in the world. Actually, no sand. I don't want sand here, really. And of course, let's dig out a shed here. We'll use this one. This is from the Bridges and Ports DLC. We'll actually use a couple of these. Maybe not where particularly. I guess you could park police cars in here. I'm thinking more just a general kind of office site, really, for whoever it is that runs these things. Right, we'll have a couple of police cars here. Perhaps a couple ready to go out. And then maybe there's one police car, even, kind of practicing a bit of a parking maneuver here, right? He has to get it in perfectly within a few cones. I have no idea, clearly, of what goes into training a police officer on how to drive? But I can pretend, right? And then, of course, there's some people currently on training as well. Maybe he has to practice like a 3-point turn out in this corner, right? We can pretend. But isn't that just such a fun little accompaniment for the police station here? Really like that. That might be one of my favourite ever kind of prop recreations, actually. Taken from Google Earth. Great fun to have alongside the service building, that, isn't it? But either way, I think we're ready to go ahead and just polish off the build now. There's lots of little spaces developed in between major service buildings that we're just going to add a usual palette of generic industry in here. To also touch on the population as well, I am quite unhappy. The garbage problems have gone, by the way, which is good. But I'm really unhappy with the population. We're already at nearly 11,000 people at episode 4, which isn't cool. That's way too many. And that's probably because I've been plopping and duplicating level 5 unique buildings, which are holding an absolutely vast amount of people. So there's just too many people living here. So I might downgrade these. I kind of like the European aesthetic, and I've been told I can get away with it for a Florida-inspired build as well, given how much kind of Spanish colonial influence there is there. But I need to not use level 5 uniques for stuff like this, because it's really hammering the population up. If we compare this to a low density home, there's just a family of 2 living here. Another family of 2. Family of 4. But there's tons and tons of people here. So might need to recalibrate exactly how I'm plopping apartments, because the difference of the population scale from 1 to 2 is really quite different. And something I need to look at as well. So I might rework those unique buildings in the middle to be something a little bit less dramatic, I think. But grab yourself some snacks and we'll be right back with Kokomo detailing time-lapse. Alright guys, let's have a look around the new area, shall we? So, I'm an enormous fan of this big industrial sector that's developing in Sartosa. Just an awful lot of fun, especially with the interchange dividing it all up as well. I carried the power lines on through. They will eventually arrive at a major power station facility at some point in the future, of course. But I would like the power infrastructure to be visible. I'm not going to delete these. I'm quite happy to see massive power lines kind of scything through the grid. I think that'll look very impressive. Alongside the interchange, lots of overgrown, dusty, sandy Florida belt between industry and everything else. Down the main street, we've added in one of Bad Peanut's pedestrian crossings from the content creator pack, alongside some northeast zoning. Again, just a nod to older commercial around industrial areas. You know, much more older buildings here. A little bit of northeast always zones in very nicely, and with some expanded surfaces and props around the back here, you can see, which is all very nice against some parking road, which then backs us onto the school here. Which is where the build ends. We'll do another episode over here, I think, essentially finishing the town of Sartosa. I think beyond the rail line, we'll start to play with different districts. Essentially, this first tile, which is very nearly filled, will become Saratosa, essentially. There is also bus infrastructure through here. You'll notice some stops on the roads. The intercity stop that comes... There's going to be a hurricane over there, isn't it? Jeepers. It's a foreboding sight, that, isn't it? That massive cloud on its way in. But yes, this is the intercity bus that actually comes out of downtown Saratosa here. This now stops on its way out of the city in the industrial area. The other bus stops aren't active. There's one here, and there's also one on the road here as well. I'm going to wait until Saratosa is finished, at least the southern half of it off the highway. And then I'll be able to think, well, okay, I know where this bus is actually going to flow to serve this area. So just prepping some of those bus stops, we'll get them in next episode. The road maintenance depot sits in very nicely. Cool to see some vehicles here. Then our schools and our med clinic sit on the corner. Also complemented with the gas station, which is such a perfect corner asset, isn't it? The gas stations in CS2 are absolutely amazing. Really nice assets. Such a common thing as well in a city build, isn't it? Somewhere to stop and get gas. And some really nice variants of them. And there's some southwest zoning next door to this as well. Which I think proves the point that, you know, plopping and zoning can work perfectly well side by side. We've got zoning on the right here, with plop on the left. Lots of barrier fencing between the recycling units, which sit really nicely and have completely solved the city's garbage issues. Greeny's asset sits in really sweetly, I think, doesn't it, with the regular recycling centre. With generic industry to boot, just to keep those production chains and the economy simulation afloat. We can have a lot of fun with some zoning, I think. A few car parks here. Two modest next door to each other, which are anarchied into a cul-de-sac on the road next door. Which again is just a little bit more interest and different shape for the road network, isn't it? Honestly, like, tactical cul-de-sac does an awful lot for the build. Behind the bus depot next door, I've just drawn in a little fence and a couple of sheds, indicating there's perhaps preparation for a build site here, which there will be once we expand the bus depot, once the city needs it, but you can still see there is plenty of buses still yet to be used. But it won't be too long before we need those expansions. So almost some temporary detailing, right? Just a way to reserve some space that you know you're going to need later. It can be a lot of fun. Zoning in here, which again has had its surfaces painted out, extra fence embellished with vehicles ready to come in. Although the building has actually since leveled up. I need to delete those tanks because they're now blocking the way out. That wasn't there when we did it. To make sure we're historical as well, right? We're going to expand that out. Lovely stuff. Over here, the scrapyard I referenced earlier in the video wasn't actually a scrapyard. It's an impound lot for the police station. So did that. Just loads of vehicles from Find It, again with tactical surface painter to indicate worn ground where these vehicles are being driven. And then a little shed and a toll booth over here with some police signage just to say, you know, this is an impound lot in association with the local police force, right? So I think this might be one of the coolest police stations we've ever put together. We've got a car test drive track here, alongside a fitness range and course, and a firing range, which includes various sheds, boxes of ammunition, shelters and covers, and various targets. So these are actually props from the dog park to serve as targets, alongside hay bales as well. All fenced in. All over here. So some really fun complementary detailing, I think, for the police station. I love that again, that you can just see the power infrastructure kind of coming over this stuff. Really is a lot of fun, isn't it? So happy with this. Then there's a road that comes with fencing down to another cul-de-sac, which kind of really brings in the whole fencing for this area, really. Kind of boxes it all off. Things we did in the episode. Some trees, more parking roads around here. I did notice, I think we really do have a parking problem, actually. We definitely need to address this going forward in future builds. Once I placed this road, we had so many people rush to it just to try and park. Now, whether or not that's intended parking simulation, because CS2 has suffered near endless bugs with its simulation in its near 3-year existence, I'm not sure. Parking in the city centre is actually lightening up. There is some empty spaces knocking around now. That could also be a time of day thing with people being out at work, though. So thanks for all the feedback on that. Going forward, we'll certainly factor in more car parking into each of the builds. And then here, just the beginnings of the next frame of Margrid that will grow. Just some frontage, low density suburbia, which I envision this gradually dissipating out into now, as probably farmland will begin to take over this side. I think that's what will happen. Or maybe somewhat still higher density while the river's this grand, and maybe downgrade to farm as the river's narrow in these areas, probably. Yeah. We'll see. Still a lot of city to go in this build, just yet, everyone. But otherwise, guys, that will do it for today. Let's thank you all again so much for making it to the end of an episode of Kokomo. If you have enjoyed it, likes, comments, and shares below really help me out, and you can help support the channel via Instant Gaming and Patreon if you're so inclined. And an enormous shout out to the YouTube members and patrons that do just that. Thank you so much for all of your incredible support. You do help keep these videos full time, and it's absolutely incredible to see so many of you pledging that. So it's incredibly heartwarming. Thank you for your support over there. Let me know what you think of this one. I think there really is nothing generic about this industry. It really is just a recycling centre and a police station within orbit, but some inspired detailing found on Google Earth can make an area so much more, and filling such of a space with service and props as well. I really do want to slow down the residential expansion, and we'll certainly be reworking how we plot high density and medium density in particular going forward in the city, as to not rush toward a massive population. Otherwise, enjoy the cinematics, and I thank you all so much for watching, and as always, enjoy the rest of your day.